So what really gets you out of bed in the morning? Seriously, what's the force that drives you to crush it on a team project or even just pick one brand of coffee over another? We talk about motivation all the time, but what if the way we usually think about it is, well, just plain wrong? Let's dive in.
You know the old classic, right? The carrot or the stick. The idea that motivation is all about getting a reward or avoiding a punishment. But what if that's not the whole story? What if there's a much more powerful way to think about it, where the real key isn't if you're motivated, but how and why?
The framework that asks these better questions is called self-determination theory, or SDT for short. And here's the core idea. SDT says we should stop worrying about the amount of motivation someone has and start focusing on its quality. It's all about these fundamental, universal psychological needs that help every single one of us grow and feel good.
So SDT starts by making this really important distinction. On one side, you've got intrinsic motivation. That's when you do something just because you love it, for the pure joy of the activity itself. On the other side, there's extrinsic motivation, doing something to get something else, like a paycheck or to avoid getting in trouble. But, and this is where it gets really cool, not all extrinsic motivation is created equal. Some of it can actually be just as powerful as the pure intrinsic kind.
Okay, so think of motivation as a spectrum. Way over on the left, you've got amotivation. You just have no will to act. Then comes external regulation. That's our basic carrot and stick. A step over from that is introjected regulation. This is motivation tied to your ego, like doing something to feel proud or to avoid feeling ashamed. Now we're getting to the good stuff. Next is identified regulation, where you do something because you genuinely believe it's important and valuable, even if the task itself isn't exactly a party. And finally, all the way on the right, you hit pure intrinsic motivation, doing it for the love of the game. The big takeaway, the further to the right you are on this spectrum, the better you perform and the happier you are.
So how do we get more of that high-quality, autonomous motivation? Well, SDT says it all boils down to satisfying three basic psychological needs that we all share. First is autonomy, that feeling that you're in the driver's seat of your own life. Second, competence, the need to feel like you're good at what you do and can tackle challenges. And third, relatedness, that deep need to feel connected to other people.
I love this quote from Edward Deci, one of the founders of SDT. It just nails the concept. You can't force a person to grow or be motivated. You can only create the conditions for it to happen naturally. Autonomy, competence, and relatedness. They're the psychological soil, water, and sunlight we all need to thrive. So, let's see what that looks like in the real world.
All right, first stop, the workplace. We all want to be on a motivated team, but where does that energy actually come from? SDT suggests it's not some top-down mandate from a manager. Nope. It emerges from the thousands of little interactions that happen between team members every single day.
So picture this. You're on a team where people respect your ideas. That's autonomy. They recognize your skills, that's competence, and they genuinely include you, that's relatedness. When people support each other's needs like that, it kicks off this amazing, self-reinforcing positive loop. You feel supported, so you're more likely to support others, and the whole team's motivation just skyrockets.
But of course, this cuts both ways. When team interactions are filled with controlling behavior, constant nitpicking, or making people feel like outsiders, it starves those basic needs. And that creates frustration, which, you guessed it, leads to even more negative behavior. The team gets stuck in this awful downward spiral of control, conflict, and, honestly, just bad work.
Okay, let's switch gears completely, from the office to your phone. Let's see how this plays out with consumer behavior, specifically with sustainability apps that help reduce food waste. The real reason people use them might not be what you think.
You'd think it's a no-brainer, right? For an app that's all about fighting climate change, the main motivation for using it has to be, well, wanting to save the planet. That green, altruistic drive must be the absolute must-have. But is it? Really?
Okay, check this out. For people who haven't downloaded the app yet, the must-haves are the fun of getting a surprise bag of food and the practical benefit of saving money. Saving the planet, it's just a nice-to-have. But here's the twist. For people who are already using the app, that altruistic desire to help the environment suddenly becomes a must-have to keep them coming back. It just goes to show you, what gets someone in the door isn't always what makes them stay.
For our last example, let's talk about shopping and the psychology behind something called mastige products.
This is that sweet spot of affordable luxury, and it turns out these brands are tapping into some very deep psychological needs.
So what on earth is prestige? It's just a mashup of the words mass and prestige. Think about brands that give you that feeling of high quality and exclusivity, but at a price that won't totally break the bank. They're walking that fine line between luxury and accessibility. Now, a really fascinating study compared why people buy these products in India and in Canada, two very different cultures. And the results, as you can see here, were amazingly similar. Even with all the cultural differences, both the intrinsic drivers like personal enjoyment and the extrinsic ones like social status were huge motivators in both places. This tells us that the psychological needs these products are satisfying are probably fundamental and universal.
So, we've looked at teamwork, eco-apps, and affordable luxury. What's the big takeaway from all this? What's the secret code for motivation that self-determination theory helps us crack?
First, when it comes to teams, motivation isn't a memo from the boss. It's organic. It grows out of the quality of those little everyday interactions. Creating a space where people's needs are met is how you build a genuinely fired-up team.
Second, for consumers, it's all about strategy and timing. The hook that attracts a new customer isn't always the thing that will keep them loyal. You have to understand how to appeal to practical benefits at first, and then connect to deeper values for the long haul.
And the common thread, tying all of this together? Whether you're at your desk or at the mall, our actions are guided by the same invisible forces, that constant search to satisfy our three fundamental needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. They're basically the universal operating system for human motivation.
So the next time you're thinking about your own goals or you're trying to inspire someone else, stop asking if they're motivated. Instead, ask a better question. What is the quality of this motivation? Is it coming from a place of pressure and control, or from a place of autonomy, value, and genuine interest? Because as we've just seen, that makes all the difference in the world.